Friendship is a key part of our lives. We use the word friend casually, almost flippantly, but how often do we stop to consider what the word really means? Harry Blatterer, in his work Everyday Friendship, defines friendship as a mutually generative relationship between two people. In other words, friendship is a relationship built on trust and respect, in which each person helps the other improve. Ideally, friendships can form between any two people. Unfortunately, things rarely work out this way in practice, particularly in Western society. In Western society, there are prescribed gender roles. Men are expected to be friends with men, and women are expected to be friends with women. A man and a woman in a relationship together are assumed to share a romantic relationship, because that is the standard assumption. Anything else is viewed as an aberrant relationship, and subject considerable scrutiny. In media, friendships between men and women, also known as heterosocial friendships, are rarely depicted. When shown, they are frequently qualified. Most of the time, they simply aren't shown, or when shown, are simply stages leading up to a romantic relationship. One of the best examples of literary heterosocial friendship can be found in J.K. Rowling's Harry Potter. Hermione Granger, one of the protagonists, proves a loyal friend to Harry over the course of 7 years, sticking with him when the whole world has turned against him. She consistently provides solid and reliable advice, challenges Harry to be a leader, and supports him, even in the absence of other friends. This relationship is often cited as a key example of what a platonic relationship should look like between a man and a woman. However, even such a positive relationship remains constrained by heteronormative assumptions about heterosocial relationships. Blatterer writes in Everyday Friendship that women in the 18th century were frequently friends with other men. However, they often needed husbands in order to legitimize these friendships and assure people that such relationships were not romantic. Upon close examination, one can see this very thing happening in Harry Potter. Ron Weasley, the third of the protagonists, begins experiencing belligerent sexual tension with Hermione starting at the 4th book. Their mutual attraction to each other is made increasingly clear over the course of the series, though it is drawn out for another 3 books from its initial appearance. It is important to note that this relationship begins at a time when Harry first begins displaying interest in women. And it might be argued that such a relationship was created to assure readers that Harry and Hermione's relationship was strictly platonic. Harry goes through something similar, establishing in the 4th book that he is attracted to Cho Chang. She remains his romantic interest for the next 2 books, until Ginny Weasley enters the fray. However, at no point are Harry and Hermione left available to become a couple, thus ensuring that the taint of romantic relations is removed from their friendship. Even the Golden Trio, a shining example of friendship, cannot escape from the prejudices against heterosocial friendships. For all that Harry Potter qualifies heterosocial friendships, it at the very least gives it a place of prominence. Unfortunately, the same cannot be said for Worm, a monumental web serial written by Wildbow. The story details how Taylor Herbert, a girl with superpowers, navigates her way around the gray morals of a world overrun with superhumans. Over the course of the story, she becomes friends with a small gang known as the Undersiders. She eventually becomes friends with all of the members, including the two males, Alec and Brian. These relationships are genuine friendships, built off of mutual trust and respect, and the support provided over countless hard hours of labor. For all that, however, the narrative focus of those heterosocial friendships is on romance. Taylor's friendship with Alec, while discussed, is never really a key part of the narrative. Far more focus is devoted to Taylor's relationship with Brian, her romantic interest at the beginning of the work. This relationship is threaded throughout countless chapters, and Taylor devotes a not inconsiderable portion of her attention to it and what it means to her. Eventually, however, Taylor and Brian decide that a romantic relationship is not for them, and Brian drops almost entirely out of the narrative. Thus, although heterosocial friendships are shown to exist in Worm, they are given comparatively little narrative attention, something made especially plain when contrasted with Taylor's romantic interest in a character. Sadly, Worm is above par in its coverage of heterosocial friendships, and many works fail to discuss the concept at all. Percy Jackson and the Olympians is a young adult fantasy series written by Rick Riordan. It details the life and adventures of Percy Jackson, a young demigod, and the struggles of him and his fellow demigods to survive against an onslaught of monstrous foes. The story contains a broad and varied cast, ranging from the various gods and goddesses of Greek mythology to the numerous demigod campers who make up Camp Half-Blood. It is noteworthy, however, that within the entire series, spanning 5 books and as many years, there is not a single purely heterosocial friendship. The only possible argument for one would be Percy's relationship with Annabeth, an early comrade of his and later his love interest. However, that friendship swiftly turns romantic. Now, some may argue that Percy is in fact friends with most of the campers at Camp Half-Blood. However, this would be a misnomer. In everyday friendship, Blatterer distinguishes between friends, people who engage in a mutually generative relationship based on their personal qualities, and comrades, or people bound by a common goal. In the case of the campers of Camp Half-Blood, their camaraderie is based around the relatively reasonable goal of surviving long enough to reach their 18th birthday. There are, of course, differing levels of friendliness between the comrades. However, there seem to be no heterosocial relationships that can be qualified as friendships, and most of the interactions that Percy has with the female cast are purely based around the needs of Camp Half-Blood. Despite this rather glaring relational flaw, the Percy Jackson series at the very least doesn't engage in the trite idealization of romance that occurs in so many literary works. In The Hunger Games, a dystopian novel by Suzanne Collins, Katniss Everdeen attempts to overthrow the corrupt capital, and her rebellion is largely based around her romantic relationship with one Peeta Mellark. Despite having only known each other for about a month, Peeta and Katniss act out a romantic relationship to give them an edge in the competitive Hunger Games. However, Collins has this romance turn real, and by the end of the Hunger Games, Peeta and Katniss are willing to commit suicide for each other. This choice seems very odd as, up until that point, their relationship had been both very new and almost entirely play acting. This romantic relationship becomes so important that it is given as much attention in the narrative as the general plan to save the country from the capital. This relationship may be contrasted with what initially appears to be a heterosocial friendship. Katniss is childhood friends with Gale, and he initially seems nothing more than a supportive, if intense, friend. However, by the second book of the trilogy, Gale reveals that he has long harbored romantic feelings for Katniss, something which rather debunks the notion of friendship in the first place. When juxtaposed with her relationship with Peeta, readers may draw a simple conclusion from this comparison. Even if it looks like a heterosocial friendship, it isn't. Secondarily, a romantic relationship is worth about as much as a country. This trend is further continued in Twilight, a teen romance novel by Stephenie Meyer. Ignoring the paradoxically involved yet shallow love plot between Edward and Bella, two of the main characters, a great deal of attention may be given to the relationship between Bella and her childhood friend Jacob. Initially, the two are presented as friends, and Jacob is merely suspicious of Edward for his hastiness, reclusiveness, and the generally suspicious nature of his family. However, as the series progresses, it becomes increasingly clear that Jacob is jealous of Edward and is in fact harboring romantic feelings for Bella. This dramatic turn to their friendship plays out for another 2 books, at which point it is discovered that Jacob is in fact attracted to Bella's daughter, who, by some peculiar quirk of vampire and human genetics, is the perfect genetic match for a werewolf. Thus, over the course of the series, Meyer has managed to turn a strong heterosocial friendship into a romantic relationship into a desire to protect the mother of one's breeding partner. Once again, even if it seems like a heterosocial friendship, it isn't. Even more egregious than transferring a heterosocial friendship to a romantic relationship is the practice of completely turning around a platonic heterosocial friendship to a romantic relationship. In the Batman series of comics, Bruce Wayne, the Batman, has an almost avuncular relationship with Barbara Gordon, daughter of his ally, Commissioner Gordon, and one of his many teen sidekicks. He serves as both a friend and mentor to young Barbara, and there is no suggestion in any work that the relationship is romantic. This is especially true in Alan Moore's The Killing Joke, a comic narrating the origins of the Joker, one of Batman's premier nemeses. Owing in large part to the popularity of the work, it was transformed into a film which took great creative liberties with the original work. In the film, the entirely platonic relationship between Bruce and Barbara starts off with the both of them having sex. The previous platonic, heterosocial friendship between the two characters is reduced to a matter of sexual and romantic attraction, one that is dealt with very shallowly in that particular medium. Thus, not only are heterosocial friendships not written about frequently in literature, but when they are taken and adapted into relationships more suited to the current societal mindset. Men and women are not to be friends. Romance is paramount. And if you think that it is a heterosocial friendship, it's not.